My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is August 6th, 2025. It is 11:12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the key U.S. news highlights from the past 24 hours. The Voting Rights Act faces growing legal threats on its 60th anniversary. While commemorating its passage in 1965, experts warn that key provisions like pre-clearance have been significantly weakened by recent Supreme Court and lower court decisions, which limit who can challenge voting law changes. The stalled John Lewis Voting Rights Act legislation further underscores the erosion of protections. In crime, extremism, and civil risk, there was a shooting at Fort Stewart military base in Georgia. A U.S. Army Sergeant Cornelius Radford opened fire at Fort Stewart, injuring 5 fellow soldiers with a personal handgun. The incident occurred around 10:56 a.m. and prompted a lockdown at the base. All victims are in stable condition. Radford is in custody. The motive remains unclear. The event is prompting renewed debate over military gun policies on bases. Cincinnati bystander killed in over-the-Rhine shooting. August 6, 2025, a 31-year-old woman was shot and killed while walking in over-the-Rhine district, struck by 15 rounds fired from a passing vehicle. Law enforcement is investigating. This remains an active case. Senate introduces Trade Review Act to limit tariff powers. Senators Maria Cantwell and Chuck Grassley, backed by a bipartisan group, introduced the Trade Review Act of 2025, that is S-1272. The bill will require presidential tariffs to receive congressional approval within 60 days, aiming to curb unilateral executive trade actions. This effort escalates in response to volatile tariff decisions under the current administration. Honey recall over steel fragment contamination. Queen Bee Gardens voluntarily recalled 265 jars of honey, including flavored and whipped varieties, for possible presence of stainless steel shards. The recall is classified as a Class 2, signaling a lower but serious risk of mouth or throat injury. No injuries have been reported yet, and customers are advised to return or dispose of the product safely. Congress explores limits on executive trade authority. That's the Trade Review Act. I have it in my report twice. Texas Republicans escalate redistricting showdown. More than 50 Democratic state legislatures continue to delay GOP's redistricting plan by fleeing the state. The retreat has prompted a bomb scare at their hotel in Illinois and intensified national attention on attempts to restrict voting access. In trade and economy, semiconductor tariffs reach 100%. President Trump has announced a 100% tariff on imported semiconductor chips from any country not manufacturing domestically or planning to build U.S. production facilities. Companies currently investing in U.S. chip plants like NVIDIA and TSMC are exempt. Pharmaceutical tariffs slated to surge. On August 5th, Trump unveiled plans to impose, an initial small tariff on imported pharmaceuticals, escalated to 150% within 18 months and possibly reaching 250% eventually. The move is tied to a push for domestic drug production. 150% within 18 months. That's within less than a year. I am personally on prescription medication, so I have to get these eye drops for my autoimmune issues. I mean, if I can't afford my medication, I could go blind. That's pretty ridiculous to just jack up the prices on pharmaceuticals out of fucking nowhere. That's just my personal opinion. I'm expressing my personal opinion in regards to that matter. Well, I like screwed everything up here. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Trade deal fallout with India on August 6th. Reuters reported that trade negotiations with India collapsed. In response, the Trump administration announced a 25% tariff on Indian imports starting August 7th. The decision comes after India continued buying Russian oil, which the U.S. sees as supporting adversary-led sanctions evasion. So, for those who are not already aware, Russia provides oil to a lot of people in that area because they are a big country in the east. We're in the west. I can understand wanting to reduce that, but Russia also provides a lot of wheat. So is anything being done about the wheat? How much wheat from Russia goes to America? The United States imports a substantial amount of wheat from various countries to meet its domestic demand. And the last report was in 2023. Total imports $337.5 billion of wheat for June 2025. So, you know, I mean, I'm just saying, he's trying to tell these people that they have to freeze in the winter by trying to sanction them if they buy Russian oil. Yet the United States is spending $335 billion on Russian wheat. I'm just saying. So U.S. trade deficit falls to 2-year low. According to the latest U.S. commerce data, the June trade deficit dropped to $60.2 billion, which is a 16% decrease. Imports from China fell sharply, lowering the bilateral deficit to its smallest ever since 2024. This contraction helped lift GDP growth to 3.0 in quarter 2, though service sector growth remains weak. Let's see what that means. This is in concerns to exports and imports. So if you sell more lemonade, export, you're selling it to foreign countries and you're exporting the lemonade. Then you buy lemons. So you sell more lemonade than you buy of lemons, which would be your import. You have a trade surplus. If you buy more lemons than you sell lemonade, you export less. You have a trade deficit. So that's what this is referring to. Trade deficit, which means that the deficit dropped. So then it means that we're doing more exports than imports, and that's all that means. So I just want to be clear. This happened because imports from China went down significantly. Exports also fell, but not as much. It's not good for the service sector, though. And that's what it means. Apple pledges $100 billion to boost U.S. manufacturing. Apple committed $100 billion towards expanding domestic manufacturing facilities, including an AI-enabled server plant in Texas. The pledge aligns with the administration's industrial policy push and follows Apple pledges $100 billion to boost U.S. manufacturing. Announced today, Apple committed $100 billion towards expanding domestic manufacturing facilities, including an AI-enabled server plant in Texas. The pledge aligns with the administration's industrial policy push and follows Apple's report that tariffs cost the company $800 million in a recent quarter. Tariffs cost the company that much, okay? So they want to do it to small business because I'm not happy with what it's doing to my business. Another thing that I would say then is, if it costs them that much money, how much is this costing small business? Like 800 million? That's 200 million short of 1 billion. So then that is a significant amount if you're a smaller business. So I personally, when I see this, I feel like what I'm seeing is an attempt to try and push smaller business out and have these corporations that funded Trump to take over. Did Apple Apple's CEO Tim Cook personally donated $1 million to the Trump inaugural committee following the 2024 election. This donation was reported by Axios and acknowledged by sources with knowledge of the donation. Like, I'll see what they're trying to do. Like, I just made a video that I haven't posted yet. And if you're watching me on TikTok, you know, I have a YouTube channel if you want the easier to digest version of these videos, because I'm just cutting this stuff up and putting it in my feed to increase my reach. Yeah, no, I'm seeing that Walmart and Target and stuff, like companies that are, you know, profiting off of prison slave labor, also endorsed Trump. And I'm also seeing how they may be able to profit off of some of the very scary things, in my opinion, that this administration is doing. So I wanna point that out. Anyways, let's go on and look at this market today. Alright, so yesterday or the day before, I think it was the day before, the stock market went like this. And then it goes like this today, so it's recovering its losses. That's what it looks like to me. So, you know, I mean, I'm going to be reporting gains, but this looks like a neutral gain. The S&P 500 SPY today, the 6th of August, closed near $632.78, reflecting a 0.7% gain. Dow Jones ETF DIA ended at $441.97, up about 0.2%. NASDAQ 100 ETF QQQ reached $567.32, rising approximately 1.2%. We're going to take a look for all the visual learners out. So this is the S&P 500. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And this is QQQ Invesco Trusters 1. Alright, we're going to go ahead and look at the economic news highlights for the past 24 hours. Alright, so today the U.S. dollar experienced a decline, primarily driven by expectations of future interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. The U.S. dollar index, DXY, the U.S. dollar index, which measures the dollar's strength against a basket of major currencies, fell to 98.25%, its lowest point in over a week. Market Watch data shows the DXY opened at 98.19 and ranged between 98.18 and 98.31 throughout the day, and saw a minus 0.25% drop over the past 24 hours. U.S. oil prices climbed from an 8-week low, Brent at $67.09 a barrel and WTI at 0.57 on signals of strong U.S. demand despite persistent geographical and trade-related risks. Wall Street rally fueled by AI optimism despite growing tariff tensions. U.S. equity markets rallied strong, driven by investor optimism in AI and corporate earnings. The S&P 500's Consumer Discretionary Index hit a new high during the session. Since Trump is, introducing tariffs on semiconductors, it does look like the United States is now actively involved in semiconductor manufacturing, but it's complex. Semiconductors are not easy to manufacture, and it's been an ongoing issue about semiconductors because primarily they've only been manufactured in one place for a very long time. That's why I'm looking into this. The U.S. is a leader in semiconductor design, research, and development. However, its share of global semiconductor manufacturing has declined significantly over the past few decades. In 2024, the U.S. manufactured only around 12% of the world's chips, down from 37% in 1990. Critically, none of the most advanced logic and memory chips, which power devices like PCs, smartphones, and supercomputers, are currently manufactured at commercial scale within the U.S. These are mostly produced in East Asia, particularly by TSMC in Taiwan. We do not currently have the appropriate technology to manufacture worthwhile semiconductors. The U.S. government has recognized the importance of a stable domestic supply of semiconductors for economic and national security, especially in light of recent supply chain disruptions. The Bipartisan Chips and Science Act of 2022 provides significant funding, around $280 billion in subsidies and tax incentives, to encourage companies to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to the United States. The Commerce Department is distributing over $70 billion of this specifically to the chips industry. These incentives have spurred substantial private investment, with companies like Intel, Micron, Samsung, and TSMC announcing plans to build or expand semiconductor fabrication facilities, fabs, across various states. States like Arizona, Idaho, New York, Ohio, Oregon, and Texas are becoming centers for these new fabs. These initiatives aim to create thousands of direct manufacturing and construction jobs, as well as many indirect jobs across various sectors. Despite these efforts, challenges remain, such as a shortage of skilled labor and the complexity of establishing advanced production capabilities. While the U.S. lags behind some other nations in semiconductor manufacturing, particularly in the production of the most advanced chips, significant government and private investment is underway to revitalize domestic production. Alright, so here's another problem with the whole semiconductor thing. We do not have the materials that we need here in the United States to make semiconductors in the United States alone without any outside help. The United States relies on other countries for a variety of critical materials used in semiconductor manufacturing. Global supply chains, the semiconductor industry by nature has a highly complex and globalized supply chain. No single country has dominance over the entire process from start to finish. Concentration of resources. Certain key raw materials are geographically concentrated in particular countries. For example, China controls a significant share of the world's production and refining capacity for certain rare earth elements and other critical minerals essential for advanced chips. Rare earth elements would be like it says rare earth elements. China dominates the global supply of rare earth elements, which are vital to a wide range of advanced technologies, including semiconductors. For example, the U.S. relies heavily on imports from China for gallium and germanium. We can't just be pissing off our trade allies. We can't be doing that. And as far as our ability to be competitive in the global markets, if our technology, I'm sorry, but I'm a nerd. Okay, I don't want to be relying on some shit ass technology, dinosaur age ass shit. And if Trump wants to piss off China and make it so that we can't get what we need to do semiconductors, we're not going to be competitive here at home. So while this talk is going on, I just want to remind people, we do not have access to all the resources that we need to be making the semiconductors. And we do not have the manufacturing capacity for it either, nor the export. So anyways, what I was saying is that these will be shit ass semiconductors that the United States is manufacturing, and China can come and whoop our asses later. That is my personal opinion. I'm expressing my personal opinion based on my observations. And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the S&P 500 and Dow Jones go up does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. There's the U.S. hazardous weather outlook. For the south and southwest, there is a heat risk. A dangerous heat wave is hitting parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and Southern California. High temperatures will climb to 104 to 109 degrees Fahrenheit by Thursday and Friday, with heat index values exceeding 110 in some areas. Authorities have issued heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. Extreme caution advised during late afternoon hours. Midwest and central U.S., in the northern and central plains into the upper Midwest, the Storm Prediction Center, SPC, has issued a marginal to enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms for Thursday and Friday evenings. Expect isolated instances of very large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes, especially across North Dakota and adjacent states. Southeast and Gulf Coast, a stalled front and incoming I don't know if I'm saying that right, is stalling over the southeast, generating multiple rounds of heavy rainfall, especially along the I-10 corridor, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Flood watches are active in low-lying coastal and urban areas, with localized totals projected at 2 to 5 inches and 10 plus inches possible in isolated hotspots, raising flash flood concerns. Northeast and mid-Atlantic, most areas are dry and turning increasingly hot, but lingering instability from upper-level systems could trigger isolated afternoon storms with gusty winds or hail toward the weekend. The primary public hazard remains extreme heat, with high humidity compounding health risks. Northwest and northern plains currently dry and stable, but a subtle cold front moving in this weekend may elevate shower and thunderstorm chances though organized, severe threats remain unlikely. Heat and hydration. Stay out of the heat, especially in midday. Stay hydrated. Seek cooling centers. Keep an eye on vulnerable individuals such as animals, children, and the elderly. Severe storms, those in the northern plains, especially North Dakota, should monitor SPC updates and have shelter plans ready after dark. Flash flooding, residents in the I-10 corridor and lower-lying coastal cities should avoid flooded roads, monitor emergency alerts, and prepare for rainfall events to repeat. General preparedness, stay alert to NWS watches and warnings, carry a NOAA weather radio or alert app, and follow utility and public health advisories, especially for power outages and air quality issues during extreme heat. Here are the top international news highlights from the past 24 hours. U.S. envoy meets Putin amid sanctions deadline. A U.S. special envoy, Steve Witkoff, met with Vladimir Putin in Moscow for roughly 3 hours, 2 days before a deadline sent by President Trump for a peace agreement in regards to Ukraine or to face new sanctions. Kremlin officials described the talks as useful and constructive. Israeli military chief pushes back on war expansion plans. Israel's military chief opposed Prime Minister Netanyahu's strategy to seize additional territory in Gaza, raising internal dissent as international pressure grows over civilian impact and expanding the war's scope. Global markets rally. World equity markets rebounded amid strong corporate earnings and easing investor sentiment. Treasury yields rose, and the U.S. 10-year yield increased to 4.23% as enthusiasm grew following tariff and labor data developments. Indian markets slip as tariff warnings mount. Indian stocks dipped as the central bank held interest rates steady and announced a neutral stance. Concerns also mounted over U.S. trade friction after fresh U.S. tariffs on India, particularly impacting IT and pharmaceutical sectors. My name is Waffles. This is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is August 6, 2025. It is 11:53 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. I got both of them. I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. And I said, it's too bad. One was in 2026 and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election and now we won. So I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA, abolish MAGA, fuck you MAGA.